Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Daily Word. This is Daily Word number 618. So thanks for joining me this morning as we continue our journey together through our daily word and the scripture and what it might mean to us and how we apply it to our lives. Thanks for carving out a little bit of time this morning. It's a foggy morning, but glad you could carve out some time to be with me. If you're watching this later, thanks for doing that. Thanks for taking these few minutes to engage with us. Thanks for saying good morning when you do. I appreciate that. Or good afternoon, whatever the case may be. So we continue to think about Scripture, even if it's a verse at a time, to think about what it might mean for us and how it enriches us and how it I guess I think about these daily words, these 618 daily words, which I had no intention of doing 618 or I suppose 1,000 when we get there. But I guess I see them as I think about this. I see them as building blocks. You know, even if they're small building blocks that we put together, stacked on top of each other, stacked side by side. And as a whole, maybe they have found a way to enrich us and help us engage in life better. And I hope that's my goal, and I hope that's what's happened for us. You know, my initial goal 618 times ago was just to keep us connected in the midst of this rapidly spreading pandemic. And that's still my goal, just to keep us connected and to keep us grounded in Scripture as that lives our life. So this morning early, just to think about this, I was at Frisch's, of course, having my breakfast, and a little conversation with a couple of folks about not worry. We don't know what's going to happen. You know, don't worry about it. And I said, well, you know, Scripture says to us, don't worry about tomorrow because today has enough troubles of its own, right? And so it was interesting, just that little thing, that little piece changed our conversation. That's my hope for our word. So hear this, and this is part of a familiar story, and we'll go a little deeper. But when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. From Matthew 14, verse 30. Now, this is part of the bigger story, of course. Jesus comes walking to the disciples on water, and Peter, impetuous Peter, wants to walk on water. So Jesus says, come on, Peter, come on out here. So Peter, of course, walks across the waves, and then he saw the wind and he was afraid. He took his eyes off of Jesus, and then he needed saved. Now, in the Bible, the word salvation is the translation of sozo, which means something is being delivered from something. And of course, the context matters to what we're being delivered from. So in Peter's case, you know, Jesus is walking on water. Peter wants to go. Jesus invites him. And when he gets out there, he needs saved because Peter, like us, you know, he was pretty full of himself, you know, trusted his own gut instincts, I'm sure, and took his eyes off of Jesus. And when the waves got too high, he began to sink. And he needed saved. Now, what he needed saved or delivered from, of course, was the big waves. Now, of course, Jesus saved him and said, ye of little faith. An interesting challenge to Peter. And I think about this in terms of how we live our lives and how it is we engage with each other in life and what it means for us. So on last Saturday, my 36-year-old cousin was killed in a car accident. And this Saturday is his funeral. And of course, I'm the family pastor, if you will. And so I'll be driving to Marion to preach this funeral to a distraught family who's lost his grandpa, had lost his dad in a motorcycle accident. Their sister has died, and now Ryan. And it's an interesting, challenging thing. And I'm going to go and be in the midst of that. And part of me says, oh, just Lord, save me from this. But then I'm reminded that, if we're really going to live our lives with each other, that, we have to keep our eyes focused. We have to know what God's calling us to. Sometimes we just get too comfortable. We get too full of ourselves, like Peter was. We jump out of the boat without thinking. And it's then that we need help the most. We spend our time, we exert our energy, we do all kinds of things, but then when it all comes back to it, we need delivered from whatever it is. And so I think for us, as we think about this story and remember Peter and Jesus' response to him in the end, you have little faith. Why didn't you trust me? Why didn't you just trust me? Why didn't you keep your eyes on me? That's true for us. Now, I know, and I am too. We're distracted by lots of things. We're distracted by all the things in the world. We're distracted by the news on the television. We're distracted by the news in the newspaper. We're distracted by social media. We get distraught about all kinds of things. But then we're reminded, because we trust in God, that we always have to refocus ourselves, as Peter needed to do. Refocus ourselves and find Jesus, find God, find our faith, find our trust, find our hope in the midst of the wind and the crashing waves that seem to be all around us. And so for us, I hope that in the midst of all of that happens to us, because it does, we don't avoid it. We don't live lives that don't have wind and waves. What we do, though, however, and this building block that I talked about earlier, is that we then use our faith, right? We use our faith to make a difference. We use our faith to sustain us. And even when we take our eyes off, we simply cry out, Lord, save me. And we find that we're delivered from what it is that has distracted us. And I think that's such good news for us, as we live our lives together. So I pray that this word today, this verse, this reminder of this bigger story is a reminder to us that while the winds and the waves come, Jesus always finds a way. God always finds a way. Our faith reminds us that we simply cry out for help and we're saved. And that's the good news for us as we live our lives. So thanks for joining me this morning for our time together. Thanks for carving out this time. Know of God's love today that surrounds you. Know my love for all of you. And I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.